Thank you all for being here, and thanks for our panel members for participating in this discussion. I think we have a great group of people over here because, what we have is independent mobile wallet providers. We have telco operated mobile wallet providers. We also have people who have experience with, bank offering as far as mobile wallets and prepaid is concerned. So it's a very good diverse group of people. Also the whole space, from an investor perspective and even otherwise from a consumer perspective, it's clearly a very, very interesting and exciting space today. Just recently we had Paytm getting a big amount of money from a big strategic and financial. We are seeing a lot of investments and a lot of interest in this space, and for good reason, right? Because the number of smartphones has been increasing quite a lot. The number of mobile internet users and the tech savvy young generation, it's all very positive for what we have here. For the purpose of this panel, we said mobile wallet is basically to level set the discussion is mobile wallet is anything which is a digital storage of currency for payments, which could also have other value added services attached to it, which could make the value proposition even stronger, right? So I think just setting the backdrop here. One last question before we get into the panel. If by show of hands, I just wanted to know how many people in the audience actually do use mobile wallets today. Yeah, that's actually pretty good. I think it's almost 50-odd%. So that's very good traction right here in the room, right? So I think people do understand and have been using mobile wallets. That's very encouraging, right? So why don't I start with Amit right here, right? Amit, I think the number one question is, for people who don't use mobile wallets, right? What would you say is the key value proposition, right? Why would you tell them to use mobile wallets, and why do you think therefore it will become very big in India, right? I think why don't we just start there?
So there will be multiple reasons, multiple use cases why anybody and everybody will use wallets. For somebody, it is more a game of convenience, one-click kind of a thing. For some other folks, for example, we see a lot of use cases at Paytm where a parent will like to give a 2,000, 3,000 rupee as a pocket money to his kid. He doesn't want to share his bank account details, credit card details. And so the kid can now go online, shop, etc., etc. And the parent doesn't have to give the card details and so on and so forth. Third is also about some of those users who are still hesitant transacting online with their cards and net banking. Because for example, if your card is a 1.5 lakh rupee limit and the details gets compromised, then you can't control the spend apart from blocking the card. In case of wallet, you can just exhaust the money, and the limit is also very, very small. So there will be multiple use cases, multiple reasons why anybody or everybody will use wallets.
So Pradeep, you have anything to add to that on why you think as part of mRupee you think will become
just to add to the use case perspective, it is always easy to remember your mobile phone and an MPIN, and being able to store all your credentials in terms of financial credentials in a common store and being able to use it. But the key to this particular piece is creating the use case and creating the ecosystem. You need to have both ends of the spectrum covered. One part is basically the merchant who needs to accept this instrument, and the other part is basically a customer who's willing to spend. You have to clearly look at ways and means of connecting both these ends of the spectrum to be able to adopt the mobile wallet story in the country, and that's I think in my mind is very, very key to the success of this mobile wallet.
So I think both of what you're saying is actually very interesting, right? And I think that it's all about having the right use cases for the mobile wallet. And I think the next question, Sandeep, to you, right, is, what in the future you think could be the killer use case or use cases for, people or consumers to get onto the mobile wallet, right? And what could it be? And where is it today, you think, in terms of the real use case of how it's being used, and what could it be?
So I think there are 2 points the way we look at it, right? In terms of when you're talking about mobile wallet, okay? The vision, I think everybody is trying to move towards is that, can you actually get rid of your physical wallet? Okay, now let's look at I'm just trying to give you a different perspective here. What does our physical wallet have? Our physical wallet typically has 3 compartments. One, we carry cash. Second, we carry bank issued cards. And 3, we actually carry something which called as closed loop instruments, which has gift vouchers, gift cards, promo codes, coupons, so on and so forth. So the way we are looking at is that vision is going to be, can we, for example, digitize all of that experience with the use of a mobile phone? And when we are able to do that, that's where the entire ubiquity of the experience is going to come into the picture. Because consumers are actually increasingly carrying mobile phones in their hand. And how we can actually get their buying experience integrated into the mobile phone. It's going to be very critical how we can utilize all the 3 compartments through a mobile phone. So today, I think we are just started in India or even worldwide, where mobile wallets is typically the first thing, which is converting cash into somewhere you're holding it. But how we can really get, like through the use of card storage functionality, right? So today you have card on file, where you can securely store credit debit cards, on the mobile phone. Now, if regulators tomorrow are able to allow us to do transactions below a certain value, small ticket transactions without the second factor authentication, then you're able to actually make customer experience far better using that card storage, card function, card numbers which are stored on your mobile wallet. That's where the entire market is going to expand very interestingly. Because to see that, also look at from merchant standpoint, right? Today, whether it's e-commerce merchants or any other partner, there is a whole lot of promotion and marketing activities which happen. Now, how do we really get, rather than emailing promo codes or SMSing codes or issuing, for example, paper vouchers, how can we, for example, start getting integrated all that as part of the mobile wallet? So one thing which actually we are doing it along with our partners today is to say that use cases across these 3 scenarios, how it can integrate on our mobile wallet. And we are seeing very interesting use cases emerging out of that.
And anything, maybe SP or Sandeep, you may answer it, anything on the regulations, because you touched on the regulations, right? What could help or not help the case of a wallet over a card, right? You're trying to replace a you're trying to replace a physical card with a digital wallet. From a regulation perspective, there has been a lot of debate around one-factor authentication, two-factor authentication for different form factors. There's some difference there. There's been discussion around the open loop and the semi-open loop, which makes you rely more on the banks versus rely less on banks. Just from a regulatory perspective, what could help or actually what could not help the case for digital wallets?
Yeah, so I think as others have said, primarily the use cases which kind of help customers overcome certain pain points, that's what will lead to repeated usage. See, what happens normally is that we all know there is a tremendous advantage of keeping all these multiple components into a single mobile wallet. That's possible. But for customers to realize it and start using it, if he uses something once in 2 months, once in 3 months, like for example, remittances, which is a very popular, domestic remittances, which is very popular, people are going to retail outlets and getting it done. There is no need for him to know how to do it. So moment he starts using it thrice a day, 10 times a day, that's when the usage really picks up. Then it becomes very sticky. He cannot go every time to a retailer and say, can you help me do this for me? He has to do it himself. So those kind of use cases is critical. See, from a standpoint of regulatory, see, of course, we are always saying that cash out is something that will be helpful, but that is more helpful from a psychological standpoint. If I put in money, I don't have relevant use cases, I should at least be able to take it out. So it's not a compelling regulatory requirement that I always need to pull that money out. So it's from a wallet standpoint, I think what is more critical is the ease of doing transactions painlessly. So coming to the one-factor, two-factor authentication, like for example, can you use it in a metro line or in a toll where there is no time for you to do any authentication. So those are things, those use cases, I start using it for 2 such use cases on a daily basis. I use it on a toll or on a metro on a daily basis. Then I will have less hesitation use it elsewhere. So it's more about consumer education and the painless way of doing a transaction. So that definitely regulations can help. Okay, you don't have to put multiple authentication for a simple 20, 30 rupees transaction. Certainly, yes.
Totally makes sense. Thanks. And I think I'll come back to a couple of points you mentioned, SP, and what has been mentioned so far. But Srini, would be good to get your thoughts, right, on what, you have seen a lot of these solutions being deployed as being part of Comviva and globally as well, right? Not just in India as well as globally. And I think you have seen it more broadly than just being a storage of currency and just as a transaction platform. What value added, or you think what additional services can be part of a digital wallet that can make this consumer value proposition very, very strong in India? Let's, maybe with global examples we can speak about it, but what could it be?
Surely. So the way I look at the wallet, in a sense, is about saying that the same container having the ability to make payment, but prior to the payment, there are multiple steps to get to the payment stage. And as long as I'm able to kind of find a good seamless experience to help consumers get to the payment stage, I think I've done a good job. So what it means is, so we try to kind of use the wallet or the mobility instrument to enable consumers in their overall buying process, right from what I call the need assessment, the information discovery, to the decision making, to the making the payment and the post-payment experience. And that is where I believe the value-added stuff would really come in. So if I were to kind of say that contextually, I am in a mall, and if I can send in a relevant offer, or let's say that I'm getting into a movie theater, contextually, if it can tell me that, you know, for this kind of a movie, there is some specific discount in terms of a book or something, that suddenly becomes that much more relevant. And when I'm making the payment through the same wallet, the payment experience is coming in, which could be then associated to my loyalty point, saying that, hey, here is the point that I'm getting accrued. So the overall life cycle, if I'm able to kind of convert, I guess people will start using the wallet. And I think that is more important. So and I think the mobility device or the instrument is the only one which can enable you to do that, right? From the context awareness, which is through your location services, which could be GPS, it could be a BLE technology. And I don't think we're really talking futuristic here. We're talking about here and now what's happening. And the ability for me to kind of stitch up and ensure that I am understanding the journey of the consumer, bringing in the relevant intervention points to help them make a decision, pay for it, and will then make a wallet for me a success.
That's a very, very relevant point, right? Because we are not just talking about consumer value proposition from the perspective of at the time of transaction, but actually what you could do before and after to make his experience even more fulsome. And I think we should again come back to that thought, because, you know, what I want to touch upon is what is, and some of the people mentioned, right? And maybe I'll ask Amit again, right? In terms of, you know, the point was made that it will become stickier if a consumer uses the wallet multiple times a day for different cases, right? I think today what's happening is primarily been around a prepaid telco kind of a top-up or an online bill payment, right? And I think I wanted to ask Amit, and others can add, is how do you go from here to there, right? Because today the use cases are seemingly limited, right? Which is a telco top-up. It's starting off on the e-commerce side where people are beginning to use these wallets. But how do you go from here to there of what we have been talking about?
So for Paytm right now have close to about 70 million wallets, out of which close to about 30 million wallets would have transacted last month. And we are now available on close to about 20,000 merchants. And even if I remove the prepaid numbers, we still be doing very, very healthy numbers. Just to give you an idea, on most of the places where we are integrated, we'll be like 5% of their total prepaid business.
Of the total merchants prepaid business?
I'm not talking about the wallet, I'm talking about the prepaid. For example, if Flipkart does 100 orders, 40 of them are prepaid. If I would have been there on Flipkart, I would have been doing 5% of 40.
5% of 40?
Yeah.
And what's the rest?
So rest are credit card, debit card, net banking and so on.
Okay, you're calling that prepaid as in cash on delivery versus prepaid by the customer.
Prepaid by the customer.
Understood. So you have 5% already of the portion which is not happening cash on delivery on some of the big merchants. Okay.
So Flipkart, obviously we are not there.
Yeah.
I just give you an example. If you take the example, Uber, obviously 100% of the payments happen through wallet, Paytm wallet.
Yeah.
Take examples of players like Book My Show, Funds and Petrol, Health Card, Make My Trip. Obviously we are there, but we are a small number out there. But almost everyone where the ticket sizes are less than say 1,000, 1,500 bucks, we form a very, very decent fraction out there.
And you would say, Amit, based on experience, would you say these are customers who are migrating from cash on delivery to using this, or is this basically replacement of people who are already comfortable using their cards or their net banking?
So we are seeing both the cases. Typically, it's more like a WhatsApp theory where people like you and me will start using it. We were already using a Gmail or a BlackBerry Messenger earlier, Gmail Messenger, but gradually we found WhatsApp to be slightly better kind of a thing. and then everybody starts using it. That's the same thing which we have seen with us as well. And interestingly, some of the things which banks have come back to us and told us is because of this wallet thing, there more and more customers are coming and transacting with their cards now. So the typically, that's something which I was sharing with someone in the morning as well, that people, banks have been telling people, go shop online, go use your card, but people are still queuing outside ATM, taking cash, and then going to the store. Now what is a small change which has started happening, at least that's what banks have been telling us, that people are putting small money there, they're trying out, is it safe to transact online, etc., etc. And then gradually the behavior shifts to the card and so on and so forth.
So just taking a cue from that, right? Because consumers are still not fully aware of the security and the convenience that a wallet could bring, right? So maybe Pradeep, you can tell us, because you are just starting this or at Tata, right, with mRupee. What would it take to get consumers aware, right? What would it take? How are you thinking about making consumers aware? Because one is having a good value proposition, but it still needs to be told.
Yeah, so as far as consumer awareness is concerned, there are a couple of ways one can go about doing it. So as far as the standard transaction sets, which could be like bill payments or recharges and so on and so forth, you could go over the top and talk to a customer and tell him that these are the various things that you can do. But like I talked about, there are specific use cases that we can really work with an enterprise, right? Which is essentially what is happening now, where we're talking about what he just mentioned about an Uber, or is a white label solution where two organizations come together and they realize that it is no longer important for me to hold the customer for that particular payment, and I give him that independence to store some money on it and being able to use it across multiple use cases. That's essentially what is happening. And hence what is going to happen now is that you're going to tell the customer, two people are talking to the same customer and telling them, look, you will now be able to use it across in this particular app, which is Uber, and possibly you will be able to use it on Flipkart, or you will be able to use it on a Snapdeal. And the money completely is liquid and you have the complete independence to use it wherever you want. And if not anything else, you'll be able to transfer it to your bank account. And that's essentially the key value proposition that we are communicating. And it's very difficult to go and talk to a customer, generically in this fashion to be able to explain the whole value case. So what we're doing is we are actually communicating on a focus group basis, and we are activating it. We're trying to see how the reaction is, and we are seeing good reaction from various spectrum of customers. We're talking about one end of the customer who is kind of self-initiated savvy, right? He is able to load money, he's able to do the transaction, he's able to do everything. There is another spectrum of customer who typically relies on the retail outlet, and he does not understand anything. All he understands is cash. And that's the market which is 90%, right? And that's the market which needs to adopt this mobile phone and adopt this mobile wallet, because he is also the same guy who's been looked upon for a bank account or for any other instrument. And his whole life cycle is completely different. Predominantly they live on credit. And the moment you get the money, he just serves his credit line. And then he gets a next round of credit and he rotates the money like that. So for him to go and actually make the mobile wallet more sensible, it is the retail outlet which is going to help in doing that. And so you see some models which are working towards that side as well. So we have to, look at the audience. We have to see as to what is his, particular use case, and then go and communicate specifically to him. And that's what I believe is going to work.
And Pradeep, you said it right, which is physical is still 90%, right? And I think the obvious question then becomes, how important is the physical the physical world is even to a digital wallet, right? Because the wallet may be digital, but the use cases often can be in the physical world, right? So how are you thinking? And maybe Sandeep, you can tell from TranServ and otherwise, you're seeing people thinking about acceptance of a wallet at a physical location, because that will increase the number of times a customer can keep using his wallet, right? So that just goes back to that. Yeah.
No, thanks. I think, Rajat, that's the one point that, we've been really working on for some time. So, one statistic that, and probably most of us are aware of that, majority of, earners, okay, people in India actually earn non-electronically, which means they receive their emoluments in cash or any other kind of form. So, when we start talking about the use cases, we have to see that, are we trying to convert currency or money which is already electronic into electronic format, or are we trying to say that we want to convert cash into electronic format? And which is where actually the point which Pradeep also mentioned and Amit touched upon is to say that how can we provide more use cases for consumers? Now, one is to say that physical payments, like I'm coming back to our own definition of wallets, right? At the end of the day, it has to get integrated into within the existing ecosystem of the banks as well as the card networks which is there in the country. So what we have is that we have exit points available not only through mobile phone or through web, but also through a regular Visa or a RuPay card plastic. Okay, so at TranServ we offer that functionality to customers. Now, for which we have tie-up with banks. Some of our bank partners are, of course, present here in this room. And we go to consumers saying that you have money available with you. You can either exit through mobile phone or you have a plastic card, you can go and swipe anywhere. Now, see, that's one thing which consumers are used to. That's something that even merchants are used to. Over a period of time, as experience starts building more and more in the mobile or a web format, people will certainly migrate. But the advantage that it gives us is to say that today when a corporate entity or when a merchant wants to do any kind of payout to the customer, then they are more than happy to give it a tool which has multiple exit options, rather than saying that it's going to be restricted only for a certain use case. So e.g. today, the use case for corporates to say that rather than, even if they want to do any kind of incentive to employees, rather than buying gift vouchers, why not give it into a mobile wallet, which if the individual wants to order a card, he can just open his app, order a card, it gets delivered to his house, and he can go and swipe it anywhere he wants to.
So what you're saying, Sandeep, is today you are made it form factor agnostic, basically saying you're saying your consumers have the same balance on both a plastic as well as a mobile, and they can use, wherever merchants are accepting cards, they can use the same balance. And that's what the proposition you have worked upon to say that it becomes accepted in the physical infrastructure.
Yeah. And then over a period of time, then as consumer behavior will change, it will keep moving towards mobile phone, and eventually they will be able to start using it. But I think it will be very difficult for us to expect that consumers are going to lock, stock and barrel shift only to mobile, because see that, let's realize it, the ecosystem in terms of acceptance doesn't exist. And the second piece, Rajat, I also want to touch upon is that integration with a lot of digital ecosystem which are putting in place. So today you have got a lot of companies which are launching apps, aggregators, whether it's a food industry or it's a travel industry. Like I think Paytm is a brilliant example which they have done. So similarly, we are able to actually integrate a wallet into various aggregator models. It's going to be very easier for consumers to start using it. So whether it is restaurant related things or even if using your services like Grofers and so on and so forth, I think it's going to be very, very important how we work with them. So our approach really is that look at use cases, look at ecosystem, build a digital payment ecosystem where we sit in the middle and where we offer solutions to everybody.
So there is, what we're discussing, there is a second aspect to it, right? One is basically allowing people with cash on digital currency or digital wallet to use in different places, even in physical world. The other is how do people get cash onto the wallet, right? Which is because today, I think majority of the propositions are you still are using or riding on a bank infrastructure, the NEFT, or you're using the card, the Visa MasterCard network to load, like you said, digital to digital, right? How do you get cash to digital, right? And I think maybe SP, you can answer that, because being from Idea, you already have a huge infrastructure of top-up, right? How do you think that can be used, or what could be other methods of making sure that people can go with cash and load it onto a prepaid wallet or mobile wallet here?
Yeah, so when it comes to digitizing cash at the retail outlets, it's possible, it's not yet happening. The reason why it is not yet happening, see, we have a million plus retailers, 1.5 million retailers, who do typical recharges and maybe some of the postpaid collections. That's what they are currently doing, and they earn significant monies from the telecom operators. So telecom operators are currently giving as much as 12 to 15,000 crores by way of the commissions and for signing up customers. That's a total kind of money they earn. So they're looking for revenue opportunities similar or comparable from a mobile wallet topping up also. It's very much possible, because typically if you look at the ARPU of a telecom operator, it's in the region of 170 to 200 rupees. So that adds up to almost 30,000 crores plus in the case of Idea, 32,000 crores in the last year. So if customers start topping up, instead of 200 rupees, 2,000 rupees or 5,000 rupees a month, then even if the commissions earned by the retailers are much smaller, it could be a significantly much larger sum, the overall earnings potential could be. But is it happening today? It is not yet happening today because the use cases are not yet attractive for the customers to come and make a voluntary pull for the services. It is currently being pushed to the customers. So this shift from push to pull is likely to happen with right kind of tipping points in the market in terms of right kind of use, the end user services which appeal to the customer. So this is the exercise which everybody is attempting. And there is no single answer to that. There is multiple use cases need to be created. Some will click with customers, some will not. So, but this exercise has to be ongoing so that end of the day you are able to get the customer to do multiple transactions in a day. Then he will come voluntarily to the retailer, and retailer will be more than happy to do that.
Correct. I think that's rightly said. Right. It's creating a virtuous cycle where you establish the value proposition, and people go to the distributor. The distributor sees the benefit, and then he starts doing all of this. So it just goes in a good cycle, right? And I think to create that push to pull, right, Srini, just touching upon the earlier point also you made, right? It is how do you, so you made the point around, making more value added services, starting much before the customer actually is using it as a transaction point and doing things after that. What are the examples you have seen? What could be it in India that, you expand that value proposition much beyond how people are looking at today, right? And I think what could be the examples of that?
Sure. Because I think even the panel, we've kind of really touched upon two distinct segments, isn't it? One is what I call the cash economy. It could be called the so-called financial inclusion or whatever. But the other one is more for people who are kind of having the cards, and how do I enable that environment in the payments context. As far as the first point is concerned, and here I think I'll kind of intertwine a bit on the security aspect because that's something which I'm quite passionate about, is saying how do you entice or induce consumers to start using the wallet in the cash economy? So as SP was mentioning, how do I enable the person who's kind of gets cash as the salary mechanism? How do I enable that money to get into my wallet or the prepaid instrument? So once I'm able to kind of do that, the person should be able to kind of top up the mobile phone. While we kind of trivialize that aspect, that's very important for them. They end up recharging regularly but with small amounts. Then how do I send money home? How do I hook up that point in as well? So that really, as long as I'm able to understand what all that person is using in a given day, and the ability to kind of do it instantly, I think is critical as well. So today it's maybe in an assisted mode, but as the education goes along, it would be more in a self-service mode. So that's in the context of the cash economy or the people who really don't use the banking rails, if I may. Here, talking about the security, they don't care because for them, the basics are missing. So, and for them, the mobile is as advanced a piece of technology that they've ever got in life. So for them, it's as secure and can't be more secure. So for them, you don't have to educate. They just you need to explain to them the benefits of moving money, storing it securely, conveniently. As long as it's done, I think security is not what they're going to really bother about. It's safer than putting in the pocket and roaming around 24 hours a day. But in the context of people who are evolved, how do I bring in the benefit and to what you were asking, I think is the difficult one. And while I'm not trying to put in a pessimistic view here, but just saying the future is very bright. It's about how do we tap it. Is saying that we've talked about Uber, but if you've read the news in the last 2 days, Uber is one which is in the first time in the world is going to accept cash in India. That's not good. That's because they're seeing some bit of a friction happening. So the point is, how do I get that Uber or anybody else to ensure that that thing doesn't happen? The seamless experience which Uber is known for continues with Ola, Uber, or whoever, or a Meru. I think that's important. So for that, what it means is, how do I ensure that whichever instrument I have, I should have the ability to make a payment? That's point one. So just to kind of complete here, and that also means that people are using the app for multiple, the mobiles for multiple reasons, be it social networking or whatever. It's a question of saying, it's as simple and as convenient to use it for payments, as long as I'm able to kind of get all that stuff together. And that's where the security aspect would come in. And I'll just conclude this point here by saying that for me, security is a state of mind in that context of saying people are not using it not because they see it as insecure, because by nature we are irrational sometimes, but because they're not seeing the benefits over what I could kind of do in any other format. So as long as I'm able to get over that point, suddenly you will see the adoption rates shooting up.
No, very interesting, Srini. And I think given we have Amit from Paytm, the point you made around Uber, and given we have Paytm here who works with Uber quite exclusively, would be good to know, Amit, do you think this is almost as a step, half a step backwards in terms of adoption of digital wallets, where, big player like Uber is saying, I need to enable cash also because I'm losing business, I'm losing out business because of that. How do you view this?
No, I don't look at it as a step backward. It's a truth of life that 95% of the Indian consumers are finally more comfortable with cash. And it is fairly obvious that it is going to take some time before some of these consumers will move to electronic payments method. If you have to reach out to these consumers, you'll have to start taking cash. You don't have a choice.
Fair enough, yeah.
But so the idea is very simple, even with Uber also, the idea is very simple, that gradually these users will have to be migrated to the electronic payments. The problem with cash, obviously, if I take the example of Uber itself, is the problem is with change. The guy doesn't have a right change at the point of time. Then they have to do a physical settlement because they will have to collect. Right now, till now, they never needed the points to collect money. So for example, what Meru and some of the other guys do is the airport counters are used as the counters where the settlement happens with the cash. Now Uber drivers will have to somehow figure out a way of depositing cash as well. So there are logistics challenges involved, but if you have to go to that customer, it is like Flipkart started the COD thing in India because the customers were not ready to use cards online at that point of time.
Totally agree. I think it goes back to the value proposition to the customer, right? And how fast they adopt. I think till the time there's no ubiquity around these things, I think people will just try and enable everything. Is the point you're making, which is a relevant one. Just switching topics quickly, one other aspect of this whole digital wallet is just the economic model of this, right? And I think we as investors also look at it and say, look, you are using for cash loading either a card infrastructure or a physical, potentially a physical top-up distribution network, which has a cost attached. And then you have to pass on that cost ultimately to the final merchant where these wallets are going to get accepted. So that's the state today, right? But going forward, how does the economic model work? Maybe Amit, we'll start with you and it'll be good to get other thoughts. How do you think the economic model of this all works? Because you're relying on other infrastructure while enabling this proposition.
See, payments globally has always made money on scale. PayPal processes close to about $200–300 billion before, and now they are profitable. It took them 7, 8, 10 years before they became profitable. So if I look at from an India point of view, where right now only 2%, 3%, probably 5% of the transactions are happening digitally, when the 20% transactions start happening digitally, because the fixed cost, finally, where does the payment business makes money? One is in terms of the interchange, the TDR, difference of money coming in the system versus the money going out. And second is more regarding how can you build more services around it. And the services can be related to the consumers, can be related to the merchants, and get the consumers or the merchants to pay extra. This is how the payment businesses globally make money. And it is a game of scale.
Absolutely. I think absolutely it's a game of scale, right? Then the question is maybe for Pradeep is not everybody can have huge scale, right? And I think does this make it a winner take all, or maybe 2 or 3 people in the end who will make it big? And because if the economics work out at scale, then how do you think about the industry structure going forward?
No, I don't think it's going to be like that, because I feel there is opportunity for many players to create this ecosystem, many players to participate in this ecosystem, and it is, just a corollary is a bank. So if you have 65 banks and you're still saying that 60% of the population is unbanked, and we are talking about maybe a 30 or 20 guys who are there as prepaid wallet issuers, and we are saying that 95% of the cash market we are going to address, And I don't think it's a problem of far too many players in there. It is about the very point that Amit just mentioned, right? You're talking about online, payments, right? Which is, in my mind, anywhere between 2 to 5% of the entire transaction which is happening in the country. Even if you take all the recharges that we do online, it is 2%, right? 95 to 98% of the recharges happen where a customer goes to a retail outlet and pays cash, gets it done. Now, the real challenge that we as an ecosystem need to address is this. You go to a merchant, which is an offline merchant. You tell him that my cost of doing this business is, let's say, 1.5% or 2%. And he is not interested. And that's the real reason as to why your merchant acquiring part of it did not scale beyond 4 lakhs. Even if you look at it from costs of 4 million POS terminals, and that's all we have, in a country which has got a billion population. So he does not see a value of actually letting go of 1.5%. And the collective challenge is here to actually educate that merchant, to tell him that, look, you are getting far more benefit than this 1.5% that you're losing, right? And the way today we see is very myopic, and we see this today, I am able to get 1.5%. How many times in our life that we have gone and used a credit card in a shop and that guy says that it's going to cost you 2% more? And that's the reality. And unless we address that part of it, I think it is going to, go around in circles, and we'll find it a little more difficult to get this kind of ROI. And that's where the real challenge lies. Thank you.
No, Pradeep, that's a good point. I would also ask Sandeep, maybe if you want to add to that, because ultimately, it's a mobile wallet is a consumer-facing proposition, right? And I think it requires branding, it requires trust, it requires, the security features that Srini talked about. So people need to trust the mobile wallets that will exist. And then you also are talking about scale. To make it all work, right? And I think I have no doubt it will be successful. I'm just asking the question on how does it evolve? Maybe the opportunity is huge, right? And how do you think about, Sandeep? Just to add to what Pradeep said, what's your view on that?
So the way we look at it is that it's not really about winner takes it all, because I think we are trying to answer that question too soon here. There are a lot of developments happening here. It's from our standpoint, it's very important to work with the existing stakeholders. Who are the stakeholders? I think banks are very, very important stakeholders, merchants, of course, and creating a good partnership between these two entities, we'll be able to serve consumers far better. Because let's face it, right? Banks typically, where what is an interest for them are typically a credit or a debit card, because that's lending and deposit taking. That's where they earn really their income from. But when you're talking about wallets or any kind of payment transaction, that's more about transaction banking. Now in transaction banking, fee income is where you technically earn from. So as Amit mentioned, that you've got two models. One is what the interchange or MDR that the merchant pays, and what the customer is willing to pay. In our view, if we are able to successfully build value proposition for consumers, consumers are willing to pay for genuine convenience. Okay, I'll tell you an example. For example, things like Book My Show, they charge a convenience fee or about 10% over even over a charge, and most people are willing to pay for it, because who wants to travel all the way to box office and then book a ticket, right? Now, I'm saying that the challenge is up to us who are developing the products to ensure that we create a genuine value, and then the economics will slowly follow that. If you're trying to convert, for example, an existing user who is very happy using a credit debit card and wanting him to start using mobile wallets, then till the time you keep subsidizing that particular transaction, he'll keep using it. The more day you stop doing it, he's going to stop using it. So to summarize, what I'm trying to say is that there is a lot of work still has to happen in terms of building a true value proposition. Economies will happen if you're able to integrate with ecosystem players like corporates and merchants for whom you're serving a much bigger deal. So e.g., if for an e-commerce player, we are able to convert cash on delivery into pay at delivery, I think that's a big cost, that's a big change for him. For that particular purpose, the merchant is going to pay. So I think we need to, as an ecosystem player, which is what we keep looking at, is that look at those large use cases, build a value proposition, then pick up income from there. It's not going to be always about burdening the consumer. Okay, consumer, wherever he sees value, he'll certainly pay for it.
Great. So just the last topic before we open it up for Q&A, and maybe SP and Srini can respond to that. SP, for you, like as a telco-led wallet provider, right? What do you think are the advantages over others, right? Because you have Idea, who already has a lot of consumers, a lot of infrastructure, what do you think is the advantage you have over, let's say, an independent wallet provider or even a bank-led wallet provider? Because we have seen these banks come up, like ICICI Bank come up with pockets, HDFC Bank has announced something they'll come up with. How do you think telco's strengths or weaknesses for that matter?
Right. See, from a standpoint of strength of telcos, obviously, as you said rightly, we have over 150 million customers, 1.5 million distribution points, and an ability to use technology to deliver services, particularly low value, high volume services. That's what is our primary ability. If you look at the number of prepaid loadings, that is prepaid top-ups that's happening on a daily basis, we do almost about 18 million transactions a day. So that's the kind of number we do on the telecom front. So that gives us ability to scale real micro payments using the mobile wallets of customers and do that. So they've been doing it for several years and they're quite conversant with how to do that as far as mobile top-ups are concerned. But the value chain in terms of their education to do it other services is yet to happen. That's tipping point. Once it happens, our ability to deliver those services in a seamless way for very small value micro transaction is a great strength that telcos have got compared to any other players in the market. Particularly, I mean, see, while we can also play the role of a digital payments route using the digital interfaces or the channels such as apps, web and WAP, etc., and also in the physical channels using the retailers and the distribution outlet. So that's a big advantage. But in terms, I mean, if you look at telco players, what is it that probably they need to strengthen in the areas is in terms of agility, in terms of coming up with new products, engineering, etc. So that area, probably that's where an opportunity is there for us to work with startups and probably share APIs, come up, create an ecosystem of new use cases. It is not that it is only our responsibility to come up with new use cases. Use cases can come from anywhere as long as you are able to come out with a structure of how to share the revenue pie, then there is a possibility of doing those innovations in terms of use cases. So I think from that standpoint, we are very well positioned. There are weaknesses which can be overcome, but strengths has to be leveraged. That's what.
Great. And Srini, what would you say? You know, you were at ICICI Bank before this, right? And you work with a lot of banks as part of Comviva. What do you think, from a bank's perspective, offering this kind of a mobile solution or mobile wallet? You know, what are their advantages?
So you've just mentioned a couple of initiatives that seem to be happening, right, by banks as well. So very clearly, what you see happening is the collapsing of just the banking or the payments world, but getting into the overall commerce transaction. And that's what Pockets is trying to do. That's what HDFC or an Axis that we kind of see. So what I kind of, banks really do is exactly that. Focus on the overall commerce transaction, for which you would really need an alliance partner. You need to kind of work with the merchants and the like, or anybody else in the overall ecosystem that SP just mentioned about. Because still you don't foster the ecosystem, I don't think this whole aspect would kind of move forward. And in that context, we've talked a lot in the context of a lot of online or remote payments. But for me, even what banks are looking at and the way I believe the industry would really move forward and needs to happen if it were to be successful is saying, how do I blend in the online remote payments to the proximity stroke over-the-counter payments? So a bit of it happening in the taxi side, for example, but if I were to just extend the point about what Sandeep mentioned, for example, ICICI also offers the ability to buy a movie ticket. But once that is done, there's still a friction where I go and take the movie, the ticket is still to be taken at the counter. Why can't it come to me as a QR code? And then I just flash my same wallet across and walk into the theater because the seats are assigned to me already. So that's what banks are obviously going to focus on, anybody else for that matter. So the ability for me to kind of blend in the online and the real or the physical world is what is important. So be it QR code, NFC, I think that's what people seem to be looking at.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much to all the panel members for doing this. Yeah, thanks. Great discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much.